Good afternoon to all of you. It's Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. And please, as always, keep your mute buttons on. And if you have any questions, please use the chat box. We're going to be checking the questions there. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer session. And always, we record the sessions, which will be made available for all of you in our YouTube channel, Lawit group channel. And there you can find all the previous webinars recorded and this one and the future ones as well. So if you want to subscribe to that channel, you will be getting the proper information of all the different events that we're going to be posting there. And let me introduce you to Juan Carlos, my brother, who is the CEO of Lawit Group. I'm Alex, I'm the CTO. And Juan, if you want to introduce yourself and explain a little bit what Lawit is.
Thank you, Alex, and welcome everyone. It's great to have you. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining this event. For just a few comments for those who might not know us, Lawit is the legal tech and legal innovation arm of the law firm Logistic. And basically what we do is we provide consulting services to law departments and law firms, offering practical ways of improving efficiency, quality, and business outcomes.
And well, as you all know and you're experiencing, we're facing a moment of unprecedented uncertainty, but we rather see the opportunity side of it. And it is crucial to rapidly learn the tools, concepts, and frameworks that enable us to understand and shape the future of law. And this COVID-19, the pre-event and what's happening now and what's going to happen in the near future, this is something that we have been talking about as far as digital transformation. And I think now this is a great opportunity to jump into all these technologies and solutions that are already out there, plus the bunch of them that are going to be coming in the market in the very short term. So Juan, can you tell them what Lawit 8 is, please?
We have been organizing these webinars to share relevant content dealing with the business of law and legal technology and innovation over the past almost month and a half. And our commitment is to invite experts and industry leaders to share their views and comment on key trends and matters that have a very significant impact on the practice of law. And certainly today we're very happy to have an expert from the other side of the world that Alex will introduce that is going to talk about a very interesting topic.
Yes, today we have JODIE Baker. She's the founder and CEO of Sakya and the chair of the Australian Legal Technology Association. She's going to be talking about disconnected legal teams and strategies and tools to manage work from a distance. She has been very experienced in managing in-house legal teams with skills, tools, and well, I'm just going to leave this slide here for a moment, and then I will introduce you to JODIE that is going to be talking from the other side of the world about what's happening there, but also most importantly, that all these things are global. The need is global. The solutions are global. In some moments, there may be an issue of language, but all vendors and all participants are looking into the multi-language solutions. So this is something that definitely JODIE is going to be sharing with us. And without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to leave the screen and the microphone to JODIE. I think you can join us now, JODIE. You're on.
Excellent. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, I'm just about to share my screen. So bear with me for one moment. And Alex, if you could just confirm when that comes up to make sure that you can see that correctly.
You're on. That's all good.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here today and to share with you some of the learnings and experience that we have with in-house legal teams. This presentation is something that we find both in-house legal teams and law firms find quite useful. Law firms from the perspective of understanding what their legal teams are doing, but also because some of the methodologies and the tools that are being used by in-house teams are sometimes applicable to law firms too, particularly as they try to adjust to what we're all calling the new normal. I guess just as a little bit of context, we are a legal software that is built and used by in-house legal teams right across the globe, South America through to North America, the European and Middle Eastern regions, and of course here in Australia and the Asia Pacific. We've been in existence, or the software's been in existence for just over 3.5 years, and we have about 200 corporate clients globally using the software. I'm not here to talk about the software particularly today. We're here to talk about methodologies and tools that are used by in-house legal teams, but in the course of the presentation, there will be some examples that I will use that will in fact reference the Zakia technology. The presentation today is based on a blog that we run. We release a blog once every 3 weeks, and attached to that blog is usually a white paper of some description that can be downloaded. So this is based on 3 white papers that are available for download, and I've got references to those at the end. So if you want to gather more information, then obviously you can go ahead and download those. Okay, so perhaps if we just run through the agenda today, we're going to be looking at legal intake and triage, so receiving and assigning work from your internal clients as an in-house legal team. And we'll spend most of our time on that legal intake and triage. Then we'll have a look at something called Agile, which is a methodology that's used increasingly by legal teams, but often by other corporate departments in big corporates to manage their workloads. So project management, receiving work, managing it, and communicating with your business. And then I'd just like to spend a little bit of time talking about how you communicate with your internal clients around things like reports and analytics. All 3 of these things have become very topical as we've gone through the COVID-19 era. Certainly as teams have been dispersed and are all working remotely, we have found that all 3 of these have become top of mind for our clients, and we find a lot of our clients are now reaching out, and new clients included, are reaching out to us and asking us how they can manage some of these processes more effectively and efficiently. So without further ado, let's talk about legal intake and triage. What is it? Really, legal intake and triage is about receiving work, which can be thinking about things like a standard format for receiving work, the contact details of your clients, key dates that they may have in mind, documents that you may need, and of course, making sure that when you receive the work, you're receiving the complete instructions that you need. Once you've received that work, then of course, it's important to make sure that you can assign that work, which means that you need to understand what sort of work it is, what its prioritization is, and of course, understanding its risk and complexity so that you can assign the appropriate lawyer to that work. And then of course, most importantly, it's about the completion of the work and keeping the client informed. It might sound very simple, but creating a process, a repeatable, reliable process around receipt of work is really, really important. And then making sure that the person who is assigned to that work matches the type of work that it is with some process around it, rather than a random allocation of work to whomever may be available or have their hand up ready to go. Why use legal intake and triage, or a process around legal intake and triage? Of course, it's important to think about all of the stakeholders here. So your internal clients need to have a known and reliable process around how they ask a legal team member for assistance, and then they want to be kept informed. The legal team, of course, need to receive clear instructions the first time, and they need to make sure that nothing is falling through the cracks. Never has this been so important as right now, when people are dispersed and working from multiple locations. It's not as easy as walking past somebody's desk as it used to be. So of course, we need to find a process that makes sure that the clients know how to reach the legal team, and the legal team need to know that the information is coming to them and not falling through the cracks or going to a place that may not mean that the work is serviced as it should be. And then of course the legal leadership team, the general counsel, or even just team leaders of, say, the litigation team or the contracting team, are responsible for making sure that the delivery of service is reliable and that they are making resourcing decisions that are informed by data. How many matters are we receiving? What sort of work is it? What sort of lawyers do we need? And so on. And then of course being able to communicate that through to the stakeholders. So we break down legal intake and triage into 12 steps, and we're going to walk through these steps today. We break them down again into a beginner mode and then an intermediate mode and advanced. Today I'll spend a little bit of time looking at the beginner and the intermediate levels, and then I'll just touch on the advanced at the end. Just as a little hint, some of the advanced is about communicating with your internal clients, and we've got a section on communication at the end as per the agenda that I outlined at the beginning. So in terms of the beginner stage for legal intake and triage, you can see this list here, and I won't read through them. We're going to step through them one at a time. So let's get started. So as a beginner, the first and most important thing is that your internal clients understand or have a clear protocol about when they should contact legal. We have a legal operations health check. And when we collect data from that health check, the very first question that we ask of 100 questions is, do your clients know when they should contact legal? And unfortunately, the vast majority of the answers are not convincing. So I think we have something like 30% say that there's not a clear protocol, and a further 20 or 30% say that it's a little bit vague. So there is a really, really clear step that can be taken here about making sure that there is a very clear instruction about when legal should be contacted before you even get started. The second is, of course, to create a standardized legal form. That could be a Word document, it could be a Google form, it could be an email inbox, but something that is standard that says, who are you? Oh, we'll go to the next piece. Who are you? What do you need? When do you need it? And who is involved? And it can be as simple as that. And if you have that information standardized, then you're off to a great start. As I've outlined here, there are various ways that you can put that into play. We have a standardized form in Zakia, which can be a great way to get started. One of the things that is really useful is making sure that you're collecting information that is relevant to you as an organization. So every organization will be different. A complex engineering company will be very different to a retail chain, for example. So you need to think about the types of information that you need and making sure that you are getting the documents that you need at the time that you ask for it. And then, oh, sorry, I'll just touch on that a little bit more. The relevant information may include, for example, who the parties are, if there's a contract term, and also just the context within which you're receiving this information. Is there a pre-existing relationship? And of course, the commercial terms. One of the things that we hear from our clients very regularly is that when they receive the information the first time, often it is incomplete. And so the first 2 or 3 interactions with their clients can be about seeking the more complete instructions. So the time saving that you're able to achieve by putting a process in place and making sure you're receiving the correct information the first time allows you to then spend the time addressing the issue in question rather than just seeking the instructions or the information that you need. This is an example of the instruction form that can be set up inside Zakia. So you can see here that on the left-hand side, we have information about the who are you, where are you from, etc. And then on the right-hand side, you might set up bespoke questions or custom questions based on the type of request that it is, and making sure that you're receiving the correct information the first time. The fourth step for a beginner legal intake and triage system is really about making sure that you are centralizing that information into one place. So if you have a dispersed team of 10 people and everybody is receiving separate emails, and then one person leaves the organization or becomes unwell, then there is no central place where that work can be picked up by the remainder of the team. So having that in one central location so that everybody has access to it is a really important step. This allows you to also capture specific information that keeps the whole team informed, or if they're picking up that particular piece of work or that matter for the first time, they can see immediately what sort of work it is, what its level of priority might be, and then of course, as we mentioned at the beginning, the risk and complexity of that work so that it can be assigned to the right person. In a system, in a centralized intake system where all of the requests are coming in from your internal clients into one central place, we see a vast difference of methodologies in terms of how matters are allocated or assigned to the internal lawyers. But one thing that is very clear is that if everybody has one place to go to receive that work and then assign it off to lawyers, it is a far more efficient system than it just going one-to-one, one internal client through to one lawyer without any real sense of a process in place. By capturing this information, we can be sure that we also have that methodology around the assignment, but also then the visibility. So we have a central location so that everybody can see what everybody else has got on and what those deadlines look like, and make sure that the workloads are being managed accordingly. That of course helps with communication with the business. So when the internal client will call into the legal team, whether that be to the general counsel or any member of the legal team, to ask where their particular matter has got to or what its status is, then they're able to be informed very quickly by any member of the legal team about its current status. Let's just have a look for a moment at the intermediate level. So here we start to get a little bit more sophisticated, and we're looking at building this into the overall process and keeping it a little bit more streamlined. At this point, we've got a clear instruction form. Sorry, I should start at the beginning. We know when somebody should be contacting legal. There's a clear instruction form. You've got all of the information that you need, and it's centralized into a single location. Now it's time to think about it within the context of the remainder of the broader context of the internal legal team. For example, have a think about what your context is. Do you have an inbox which is used by the whole of the business to receive work or to send work in? And who monitors that inbox? Is that the responsibility of one person, two people, the whole team? And what does that look like? What we often hear about an internal or an inbox from a legal team is that it can become quite cumbersome to manage because people will email something in, not necessarily with complete instructions, and often there is a sense in which replies will come in or out of that inbox, and it gets difficult to know which of those things have been managed or dealt with already, and which have been assigned off and are being dealt with by a specific lawyer. Often we see intranet forms that can be filled in and sent into the legal team, which is a great start. And then obviously pre-COVID-19, when everybody was in an office, there was often a filing system or a paper-based system for receiving instructions. We haven't seen that for some time. Even pre-COVID, it's definitely something that is being phased out, but it is a way of receiving standard instructions on a form. One thing though that we are very mindful of is that we need to consider where the clients are, and where you have internal clients who are working from their own inboxes, they may need some sort of a system that they can manage from that place. Or if you have a central intranet where everybody goes to find information or services from within their organisation, then it's important to be able to embed a legal intake form there so that your clients don't need to go to a new location or something that they're not used to. So always think about the context within which your clients are operating. The most important thing in the whole intake process from my perspective is the importance of communication. So keeping your clients informed. If you think about your own experience where you call a help desk and then you have no idea if somebody has received that, there is no communication about where something is up to, the frustrations that you feel as though nobody is listening to you and that there is no progress on something that is very important to be resolved can be the most frustrating part of any process. So it is absolutely essential in your legal intake and triage implementation that you consider how you can keep your clients informed. If you can automate that, even better. First, we have received your request. The person feels as though they have been heard and they know that something is underway. The second is to know that there has been somebody assigned to that particular matter. Then they know that it is progressing and they know who to contact should something not progress. And then, of course, updates throughout the matter about changes to status, law firms being assigned, further questions about the commercial terms and what have you. That may be a long process or a short process, and to some extent those things can also be automated, but it's really important that you consider what those major milestones might be. And then, of course, the confirmation that the matter has been completed and the file has been closed. Again, to the extent that you can, automate those processes, but if you cannot, then it's really important that you bear them in mind right through the process so that people understand that their matter has been addressed or is being addressed at every point. One of the, when you get into this intermediate step, one of the biggest efficiency and productivity benefits that you can get out of an intake and triage process is to make sure that you're getting complete instructions. And of course, a dynamic instruction form will ensure that you will get the right instructions for the right type of matter. One size does not fit all, and whilst a beginner step to have a standard form is very helpful, just knowing who is asking for the work and what sort of work it is and when they need it is a great start. But a procurement contract is vastly different to an employment contract, and so the questions that you need to ask and the information that you need to receive will be very, very different. So think about how you can set up your instruction form so that the questions that you ask and the information that you receive is relevant to the type of work that needs to be done, and try as much as you can to cut out those first, second or third steps around seeking greater clarification around the work that needs to be done and get the relevant information. The 8th step, of the 4th in the intermediate level, is to think about the feedback. So how did we do? It might be very simple, like a thumbs up or thumbs down rating, or you might ask for comments. We see typically that in-house legal teams are often asked to run some sort of a survey amongst their internal clients each year so that they have a sense of how they have performed as a corporate service department. If you can collect that information as you go through the year on a matter-by-matter basis, then even better. That will give you information or a continuous feedback loop so that you have the capacity to build that in and continuously improve that process and, of course, the delivery of the work. If you can build that into the workflow, say at the conclusion of a matter, even better, that automates the process. But really, one of the most important one of the most important steps there is to gather that as data. Did we do well? Yes or no? 87% say yes, 13% say no. Is there any consistency in the no's, i.e. that it's the same type of work? Maybe we're not doing our employment contracts as efficiently as we could or we should. Maybe we're not turning things around as quickly as we should, and so on. And there's a data analytics component to that. At the very beginning, it would be really important to keep that simple, and then, of course, continue to drill down as you've got more and more information. But gathering the information throughout the year is helpful, and intuitively you'll get a sense of how that is, or how you are performing and how that looks. Over a period of time, you need to formalize that and start to build that into some data analytics. And then, of course, putting that into some sort of a reporting mechanism, feeding that back to your internal clients and, of course, to your major stakeholders will be an important component as well. And again, we'll return to the communication part of that a little bit later. I'm not going to spend too much time on the advanced section here, other than just to quickly talk through these 4 points. When you're looking at legal intake and triage, it is, if you're going into the advanced stage, you really need to think about your other systems. If you have a document management system, for example, and you are receiving documents as part of your legal intake and triage, you might like to think about how those documents automatically transfer into your document management system. If you are using, say, a contract management system, the same question will apply. Not every request will be a contract, but it may be that you're receiving requests that are contracts and that you want to transfer those into a contract management system. Likewise, a matter management system like a Zakia, and of course the ideal would be to have all of those systems connected so that they all talk to each other and everything can just be an automated process to the extent that you can manage that. The ideal outcome is to make sure that you are transferring data through from its first entry all the way through your systems so that you're never rekeying information, the name of a client, the deadlines or key dates and so on. If that's put into the system once, it should transfer right through your systems so that you don't have to do that again. The very advanced users of legal intake and triage will be tracking and reporting key metrics, not just feedback metrics, but also things like how many matters did we receive from this particular client, how quickly did we turn them around, how quickly did we assign the work. Those metrics will inform how efficiently you are servicing your clients and where the opportunities for improvement might be. Which of course leads into the 11th point here, which is continuous improvement. The data is one thing, actually implementing improvements is another. That's a continuous refinement of your intake forms, for example, making sure that you have information that is useful to them questions that are relevant to them, and you're receiving information that is useful to you so that you can resolve the legal questions appropriately and as efficiently as possible. And then for the very advanced users, one of my favorites, and certainly the shiny new technology toy on the market in the last 5 years, has been around automation and self-help tools, particularly for regular and low risk work. So here you might think about contracts that can be generated by your clients by themselves, questions, frequently asked questions, for example, where you can set up the answers so that they can find that information for themselves. Those sorts of tools need to work in with a legal review so that if a contract is generated, but it still requires legal review, it might be that it comes through an intake form and provides that information pre-prepared to the legal team, and they really need to just scan it quickly and give it an approval, or it might require a little more drafting. But those opportunities for automation are really quite significant now. We see some very exciting things happening in the market. Okay, so that's the legal intake and triage part of the presentation. I don't think there are any questions, and we can come back to that at the end, but I'd like to just touch for a moment on the agile aspect here, which is something that has been very popular, as I mentioned, as we've moved into the remote working era. So agile is a terminology which may not be familiar to you all. It is a project management methodology that was first introduced into software development, but it is actually now used by more than 70% of corporations globally. It's a very simple tool for managing all sorts of different types of workloads, but some of the characteristics will be familiar to you as a legal team. So think here about high volume work, often with discrete tasks, and high levels of communication and collaboration required with your client base. We have quite a number of legal teams amongst our users who adopt Agile as a methodology. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be across a proportion of your work, and some work may not be appropriate for Agile, but it is a fabulous way of getting a very ordered communication amongst your team about who is working on what and for whom. Why would you use Agile? It really provides a great level of flexibility amongst your team. All the studies show that the level of productivity amongst Agile users increases, and that it does allow for improved transparency across a team about who is working on what and for whom. It does center a lot around the quality of the work and the communication with your internal clients, and therefore, if we're delivering great work and with a higher level of transparency and productivity, often we'll see higher quality work as well with the faster turnaround times, which seems almost to defy logic that we can do it faster, better, and in some cases cheaper too. We also are really focused here in Agile around making sure that we don't miss any of the deadlines or our strategic objectives. So having it very visible, having the workload very visible and transparent means that you can be very sure that the work is on a visual Kanban board, which we'll talk about in a moment, and therefore it won't just disappear or fall through the cracks, which is one of the really key motivators for a lot of Agile users. There are 3 steps to Agile. The first is to visualize your work. The second is to communicate very frequently. And the third is to engage with your stakeholders. And that piece is around the communication, which will form the third part of the presentation. Let's look at the visualization of the work. With Agile, the task here is to break down your workload into specific tasks. Now that might be large tasks and small tasks. It's not to assume that every single legal task is a very small piece of work, but visualizing those or breaking them down into larger tasks and then into smaller tasks can be a way of visualizing it on a Kanban board. We sort those tasks into status levels. So here you can see that I've used the not started, in progress, awaiting action and completed. And then you can visualize that on what's called a Kanban board in a card format. I'm actually just going to show you here. This is a Zakia, what we call the card view. So it's the same concept. So we have not started, in progress, awaiting action and completed. And each matter or task has been allocated a status level and then put into a card format, and you can see it visualized here on the Kanban board. Here we have broken down the matters and tasks by color. So the matters are in red with a little red left edge, and the tasks are in yellow. When you visualize this information in an Agile format, the idea is that you can then break it down further. So you might continue to filter your board until you are looking at, oh, looks like I've forgotten to put in the second piece there. Oh no, I'll come back to that, sorry. And so the idea is that you can visualize that. And then actually I'm going to move on to this communicate often. I forgot for a moment the format of my own presentation. Let's talk about the communicating often piece. Here, in Agile, the idea is to gather for very short meetings every single day. And when I say short, I mean very short. Typically a stand-up will be in your smaller work groups, so groups of 6 to 10. It will go for no more than 15 minutes, and typically each person will speak for about 1 minute. They answer 3 very quick questions. What did I do yesterday? What am I focusing on today? And are there any blockages? Is there anything stopping me from getting my work done? This is not the format to resolve those blockages, only to understand what the blockage is and if anybody else in the group can assist with unblocking something. By answering these very quick questions in a very quick meeting, the idea is that everybody understands what the workload looks like, and each person has been forced to articulate what it is that they're focused on. It helps to identify where workloads are too great. People are perhaps assuming that they'll get more work done than they really can do, or if people have capacity and that work can be moved around between the team. So that means that then when we go back to our Agile board or our Kanban board here, we may filter just to have a look at a particular person. So I filtered this Agile board here just to look at my own work. Now I have a lot in my in progress lane. This is just a set of fake data, but I have a lot in my in progress lane here. And it may suggest that that's an unrealistic workload for me. If I was to look at another person's workload and they had more capacity, it might be more appropriate for us to move that work around. And so a stand up or these very short meetings give you the opportunity to move the work around in a very quick and flexible way on a day-to-day basis. So if you imagine everybody working in remote locations and having a Zoom meeting as we are now, and very quickly going through as a group and defining what they did yesterday, what they're focused on today, and if they're blocked, and just going through the Kanban boards one at a time for 1 minute, then that's a very quick way of, despite the fact that we're all in different locations, of everybody understanding the workload amongst the team. For a manager, that is a fabulous way of being in touch with your team, not taking up the entire day with one-to-one meetings, but also getting a sense of what the team's capacity and productivity looks like. So this has been a very popular way for teams to move into a remote working environment and maintain focus on the workload, and also communication across the team about who is working on what and for whom. And then of course there's the communication piece, which I'm going to skip over because I'm going to do a whole section on it, and this is only a few minutes. When I say a whole section, it's not too long. Okay, so communication, why use it? The most important thing, of course, is to connect with your stakeholders and to be able to articulate, analyse and share information. And probably the one that most legal teams struggle with is demonstrating their own value. And it is a critical component for in-house legal teams, particularly at the moment, to understand or to be able to articulate why they are so critical to a corporate organisation. What is it? It's reporting. What does that look like? It means that you need to understand who your audience is. You need to think about the content of a report and also the cadence. Should it be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or sometimes even annually? There is nothing like a picture to tell the story when it comes to articulating what the legal team does, how it does it, and how important it is. Pictures will speak far more powerfully than a series of words. And that is something that we are really passionate about at Zakia, that the visualization of data is absolutely essential. Your communication will, of course, vary depending on your audience. If you are reporting through to the head of a business unit, you might like to provide them with a list of the work being done for that particular business unit, the budget being spent, how the resourcing is being managed, and of course, pardon me, the different work types that are being done. On the other hand, your CEO or a board may be more interested in risk management, the strategic contribution, and of course, still the budget. If you're a legal management team, you may be interested in a high-level matters list, so the list of work that's being done, but only the high-risk work. Again, the risk analysis and budget. You would like to be able to see and articulate what the strategic contribution of the legal team is, and then important metrics around the volume of the work, how quickly you're servicing your clients with a turnaround, and the resourcing of the work itself. As an individual legal team member, I might be interested in only my own list, and I would like that to be quite detailed, or I might like a more complete list of the whole team or group that I work with, and some analytics around that as well. Those reports can be, pardon me, can be as beautiful as you need them to be, or they might need to be very word oriented with some metadata, descriptions, status updates, etc. And again, it will depend entirely on who the audience is and what sort of information is required from them. And that was pretty quick, but that is the end of the presentation. So I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any. And there are the resources that are available to dive in for more information.
Thank you very much, Jodie. Great presentation and great insights. A few questions just while our participants post any additional ones that they might want to make. But let me get started with this one. In the intake process that you mentioned, do you see that there is any problem or conflict when you look at the law firm system or the internal law firm system versus the in-house legal system? How do they connect or disconnect? Is that a reality? Is that a challenge that you see on a daily basis with your clients?
So I think that there are, there's a flow of information. So the ultimate client, or the internal client as we call them, may make a request through to the in-house legal team, and it may or may not stop there. It may be the in-house legal team who manages that particular request. Where it then flows on to the law firm, there's a question about how that information should flow. So should it be that it flows directly through to the law firm when it's a specific type of work, or should it actually, I think I've just lost video. I think I've just lost everything.
Yep, we see you.
Okay,
and
sorry.
we hear you. Don't worry.
My screen just went a little bit blank, I'm sorry. So the information may need to flow all the way through to the law firm, in which case you might need a system that will take you all the way through, or flow that information all the way through, or you may need to just curate that and say, no, we need to stop that, and it becomes a manual process. I guess it depends on the law firm, it depends on the type of work, etc. But if you can automate that process all the way through, then all the better.
Okay. Now, regarding the, as you mentioned, you jumped into this new venture 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you've seen, obviously, the perspective of Australia, but you have clients in Asia, in Europe and South America as well. How fast have you seen legal tech advance over the past few years, and what do you see will happen in a post-coronavirus era?
That's a great question. The last 5 years have been extraordinary for legal technology. I think that legal technology had a very long embryonic phase. So 1980s through to probably about 2015, it was novel, it was kind of interesting, but there were very, very few adopters of legal technology outside of e-discovery. Since 2015 and cloud technology, so think about AWS and Microsoft Azure and and Google Cloud, some of these options for hosting technologies and fractionalizing the cost so that small teams can access technology, that's allowed groups like Zarkia to spring up, which make technology very affordable. And because it's affordable, the adoption rate is higher. And because the adoption rate is higher, there are more technologies springing up that can help to accommodate or feed that market. So 2015 I see as a real turning point in terms of the adoption, and it's been very, very rapid. From here, there's no bigger catalyst than right now for needing cloud-based technologies that everybody can access from all over the world or from wherever you might be, to centralize your information, automate your processes and what have you. I think that groups like Lawit and Logistic are so essential for curating the market, understanding the tools that are out there, helping teams to really know what it is that they should be looking at, because it's such an overwhelming market now. But I just see acceleration, certainly at the Australian Legal Technology Association and all of our members. The acceleration in demand has been quite phenomenal. And the same is true for Zarkia.
Let me ask another question. You mentioned very important concepts as process, standardization, visualization, making things reliable, repetitive, automatic, etc. On the agile concept that you explained, on that project management new approach, is that something that you see happening both in the law firm environment and in the in-house environment?
No, it's not, frankly. In-house environment, yes. Law firm environment, so far, no. However, what I would say is that until we introduced it at Zarkia, I'm not aware of the software component of the agile capabilities for legal specific purposes existing anywhere else in any other software. And that's true for law firms as well. So there is a very strong possibility that a software somewhere will look at offering this sort of tool for law firms. We've certainly had, I can see that Ann Post is on the call. We've certainly had law firms reach out, particularly in North America, who are interested in thinking about using Zarkia for law firm purposes, particularly for the agile capabilities. It's not built for that specifically, and we only have one team here in Australia who is using it, one law firm team who are using it for that purpose. But it's not to say that it won't grow in some other software, or that Zarkia won't accommodate that at some point in the future. It's a fabulous methodology that we see great productivity out of the use of agile. Excellent.
And just to finish up with, what would be your comment, advice, or recommendation for those that who join us, both from the law firm environment and from in-house counsel? Is there any advice or any comment that you will send to those lawyers in Mexico or working in Latin America that see this as as an upcoming, not a trend, but a necessity to be more effective and leading into the transformation of the legal industry?
Probably my advice is to start simple. Don't try and be on the advanced page of legal intake on day one. Just start very simple. If it's just a case of saying, well, what do we do for intake, and understanding your own processes first, and introducing some very basic tools, then that's a very simple thing. Sit down with one and have a conversation about what do we do now and what can we do in very baby steps to make it better. If you take small steps and quite quickly, then you'll get there much faster. If you try and climb the mountain on day one, then you're likely to fail and then not try again. So we're always in favour of people just taking it slowly, having a good conversation with somebody who understands the market, and understanding your own processes first before you try to climb that mountain. But look for the technologies too. I mean, try things, be prepared to fail. And if you're prepared to fail, then you're prepared to try again. And that's a really important component of adopting new things.
That's a great advice. And again, we want to thank you for accepting our invitation. We've worked with you in the past and know obviously the technology, and I think it's great for anybody in the enterprise sector or the in-house. It's a game changer to have the visibility and traction of everything that is going on the operation of a team, especially now that those teams are remote. So I think it's a very timely conversation. Congratulations on all the successes, and we hope to have you in Mexico very soon. And again, thank you so much for your time and the presentation.
Thank you so much for having me, and stay well, everybody.
Thank you. Alex is gonna switch now to show a few slides.
Well, the next webinar that we have in a couple of days on June 11th at 1 p.m. Mexico City time is with Tom Martin, and he's going to be talking about automation and bots, the new legal paradigm. And these chatbots are quite a thing of the now. They're already here. We have all the experiences that sometimes we don't even know about it when we do car reservations, hotel reservations, and a lot of other things were being answered by robots. And Tom's going to talk about that from the legal side and the law firm side, and that's going to be quite interesting. And then Juan, if you want to explain a little bit about the new legal tech competition that we just started.
Yes, we just launched the legal tech competition in Latin America. The idea of this event is really to bring into light all those startups that have developed some technologies or some applications that are making a important transformation into the legal operation. It doesn't matter if it's within law firms or companies or even public sector, but any legal tech enterprise, startup, or entrepreneur that has developed something of this nature in Latin America, they're more than welcome to participate. It's going to be a top-line competition with a series of international judges. So I think it's a worldwide effort to show what Latin America can provide to the world in terms of legal technology.
And then we do have our physical event, which is the Lawit Legal Vision 2020. And this is going to be in Mexico City on October 15th, assuming that everything will be new normal by then. And it's a 500-seat event. We have already sold more than 350. I think we have like 150 left. And this is a full day event from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to be bringing a lot of experts from around the world and a lot of Mexican talent that are going to be sharing everything that is relevant in the innovation and technology side in the legal world. And now even more with this COVID-19 post needs. And this is going to be quite an interesting event. You can get information in legalsummit.com, lawitgroup.com, sorry, legalsummit.lawitgroup.com. lawitgroup.com. That's where all the information is and registration. And well, the phrase that we have been using in all these webinars is that in times of turbulence, the biggest danger is to act with yesterday's logic. So it is time to basically forget a lot of the things that we have done in the past and reinvent ourselves and learn new things, new tricks, and be up to date to the new challenges that our customers are going to be asking for, that we need to be relevant in the industry and to stay profitable and in the market. So with this, we say goodbye and we thank you for joining us, and until the next event. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned at the beginning, probably even tomorrow morning, we're going to have this session recorded in our YouTube channel, Lawit Group, and that is where you can find also the rest of the webinars that we have been holding with the different guests that we have. And this is the same case with JODIE's presentation and the future ones to come. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you,
Bye.
JODIE. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.